Here's something that should probably annoy you. Your ancient ancestors likely had more free time than you do. Not a little more, far more. The popular image of prehistoric life is a non-stop grind for survival, clawing for every scrap, collapsing exhausted, doing it again at dawn. The real evidence points somewhere much stranger and a lot more relaxing. To see it, you have to actually measure a day in the life, which someone finally did. In the 60s, an anthropologist named Richard Lee went to live with the Jew-Huansi people of the Kalahari Desert. They were hunter-gatherers, living roughly the way humans lived for most of our history. For about 95% of our existence as a species, this was simply how everyone lived. Farming and cities are a thin sliver at the very end of the human story. Lee did something simple but clever. He wrote down who left camp, when they left, and when they came back. Basically, he kept a timesheet for the Stone Age. Leaving camp to forage was their version of leaving for the office, and the numbers surprised almost everyone. The Jew-Huansi spent only about 12 to 19 hours a week getting food. That's it. 2 or 3 short days of effort in one of the harshest deserts on the planet. Not a lush paradise full of easy food, but dry, unforgiving scrubland. And still, the work was done by early afternoon. The rest of the time was theirs. The anthropologist Marshall Solins took this idea and ran with it. He called hunter-gatherers the original affluent society. Not rich in things, but rich in the one resource we never seem to have enough of: time. His argument was that they were content not by owning a lot, but by wanting very little. A person who owns almost nothing has almost nothing to maintain, guard, or replace. Their wealth was measured in hours, not objects. It's a definition of richness that's almost the exact opposite of ours. Now, honesty requires a caveat because this finding got a little oversold. That 12 to 19-hour figure only counted the hunting and gathering itself. It left out cooking, repairing tools, and hauling firewood and water. Add all of that back in, and the work week climbs to something like 40 hours, which, you'll notice, is suspiciously close to your own. And critics add that foraging life carried high infant mortality and the real threat of famine in a bad year. Leisure is small comfort if a single drought can empty a camp. So the honest picture is a life freer with time, but far more fragile than ours. And yet, once you add a modern person's commuting, chores, and errands on top of the job, the forager still comes out ahead on time. And they did it without bosses, deadlines, or a single unread email. There's another myth worth puncturing while we're here. We like to imagine they slept beautifully, long and deep under the stars. But studies of modern hunter-gatherers found they sleep about as much as we do, sometimes less. They just didn't lie awake feeling guilty about it. So if they weren't working themselves to death, what filled all those hours? The answer is genuinely lovely, and we have a detailed record of it. The anthropologist Polly Weissner spent 40 years among the Jew-Huansi. She noticed their conversations changed completely depending on the time of day. So she did something nobody had bothered to do. She recorded what people talked about by daylight and what they talked about by firelight. In total, she analyzed over 100 separate conversations. The difference was striking. During the day, the talk was practical and a little sharp. Roughly a third of it was complaints, criticism, and gossip about other people. Another third was economics, the equivalent of who's doing what for dinner. Daytime was for logistics and keeping everyone in line. Then the sun went down, the fire was lit, and everything shifted. At night, around 81% of the conversation turned into stories. Tales about distant relatives, ancestors, myths, and the adventures of people they knew. The gossip and the arguing largely melted away once the flames came up. It was as if the daytime self clocked out and a different, more reflective self took over. Weissner described the firelight as something that mellows and bonds people. Think about what that fire was actually doing. It added hours to the day that couldn't be spent on work. You can't hunt in the dark, but you can talk, sing, and imagine. The same firelight that kept predators away kept conversation going. Firelight quite literally created the space for storytelling to exist. And storytelling is how a people without books passed down everything that mattered. How to behave, who you're related to, what the world means, where you came from. A single good storyteller could carry the history of an entire people in their memory. So a huge part of what ancient humans did all day was, in a sense, tend their culture. They maintained an enormous library, and every book in it was a person. Lose an elder, and you lost entire volumes that could never be reprinted. which makes a campfire something closer to the first television, the first church, and the first classroom all at once. Now here is where the story takes a darker and more surprising turn. For a long time, the assumption was that farming rescued us from all this, that agriculture meant security, comfort, and the start of the good life. The physical evidence tells almost the opposite story. When humans switched from foraging to farming, their bodies got measurably worse. We can see it written directly in their skeletons. The biologist Jared Diamond gathered this evidence into a famous essay in 1987. He gave it a deliberately provocative title. He called farming the worst mistake in the history of the human race. Look at human skeletons from before and after the switch to agriculture. The early farmers were shorter than the foragers who came before them. Height is one of the cleanest signals of childhood health we have. When a population shrinks over generations, something is going wrong with how they live. Near the end of the Ice Age, men stood around 5'9". A few thousand years into farming, that had crashed to about 5'3". The shrinking shows up in modern data too, not just old measurements. A 2000 study compared skeletons to their own genetic blueprints for height. Neolithic farmers came out almost 4 centimeters shorter than their genes predicted. In other words, something in farming life was stunting people below their potential. And it wasn't only height. Early farming communities show far more anemia, malnutrition, and infectious disease. Leaning over the same crops all day wore down their spines and joints. By one estimate, life expectancy actually dropped after agriculture arrived. People worked harder, ate a narrower diet, and lived packed close to animals and waste. That combination is a recipe for exactly the diseases their bones record. So why on earth would anyone make this trade? Because farming had one ruthless advantage. A field of grain feeds far more people per acre than wild plants ever could. Farming didn't make individuals healthier, it made populations bigger. More mouths, more workers, more soldiers, even if each life was a little shorter and harder. From evolution's cold point of view, a miserable farmer with 8 children beats a happy forager with 2. And once a tribe started farming and multiplying, its neighbors couldn't really refuse. You either kept up or got pushed aside by sheer numbers. Farming wasn't a choice we made because it felt good. It was a trap we walked into one reasonable step at a time. No single generation chose the whole bargain. We traded leisure and health for security and growth, and there was no going back. Each generation just did what made sense in the moment and woke up inside a new kind of world. That office chair you might be sitting in is the distant end of that very bargain. So let's return to the question we started with. What did ancient humans do all day? They worked a few hours, gathered what they needed, and then mostly stopped. They rested, played, argued, repaired their things, and raised their children in full view of everyone. And at night, they sat together in the firelight and told the stories that held their whole world together. It was not a paradise. There was real danger, real hunger, and real loss woven through all of it. But it may have contained more of one thing than your life does. Unhurried time spent face to face with the people right beside them. No screen between them and the person across the fire. Which leaves a strange and slightly uncomfortable thought. We built an entire civilization to escape that life. So why do so many of us, deep down, feel like we're trying to find our way back to it?